love going to Broadway shows, but can't go now because Broadway's closed. Join tour guide Tim and Belasco too as they bring Broadway history to you. Grab your Broadway passport for what's in store on your virtual Broadway tour.
When theatergoers first enter the Marriott Marquis Hotel on their way to the third floor to this week's theater, the Marquis, they are met with a lobby bustling with hotel guests, exposed elevators rising into the sky, and a beautiful atrium 48 stories high. Guests would never know it by looking at the contemporary aesthetic, but an examination of the hotel's origins reveals a controversial, tragic story. As part of Mayor John V. Lindsay's urban development plan to clean up seedy Times Square, it was announced that a 2,000-room hotel would include a 1,600-seat theater. While many New Yorkers were on board with the building of new skyscrapers in Times Square area as a means of renewal, the Portman Hotel presented a unique challenge. In order to build the new hotel, 3 historic Broadway theaters and 2 movie theaters would have to be demolished. The 3 Broadway theaters, the Morosco, the original Helen Hayes, and the Bijou, were intimate playhouses that had presented some of Broadway's most iconic productions from a notable lineup of famous playwrights. The 2 movie theaters, the Astor and the Gaiety, had originally been built as Broadway theaters and each had their own storied past. None of them were landmarked, so a battle to save them began. In 1982, in response to the cultural crisis, artists took matters into their own hands and started the Save the Theaters campaign. The Public Theater's Joseph Papp, actors Christopher Reeve, Susan Sarandon, Richard Gere, and a slew of other theater luminaries joined forces to protest outside the theaters, often in cold, driving rain. A stage was assembled, and the actors took turns reading passages aloud from the notable productions that had played the historic buildings, just steps away from where the lines of dialogue were first spoken many years prior. For weeks, the protesters passed out pamphlets, performed, and created enough buzz to get a motion from the mayor to stay the wrecking balls. It appeared as if the artists might just be victorious. For 1 week, the wrecking balls and bulldozers sat inactive. And then, in a tragic turn of events, the mayor's office lifted the stay. On March 22, 1982, as the protesters were arrested, the Portman Hotel bulldozers roared to life, and the wrecking balls began their pendulum-like swing, moving ever closer to the brick facades of the theaters. Within 10 minutes, there was a gaping hole in the east wall of the Morosco, and just 2 days later, all 5 theaters had been reduced to a pile of rubble. Where applause and laughter had once rung out, now there was only silence. Known as the Great Theater Massacre, this was a dark day in Broadway's history. In 1986, 1 year after the Marriott Marquis Hotel officially opened for business, the Marquis Theatre presented its inaugural production of Me and My Girl. On stage, the London transfer proved to be a big success, but backstage was another story entirely. The union stagehands had great difficulty moving the physical production into the building because the architects of the hotel chain hadn't incorporated a freight elevator into the theater's design. To add insult to injury, a drainage pipe spewing sewage near the theater's backstage air vents caused noxious fumes to seep into the dressing rooms. The problem was finally rectified many years later. Much like the critics' reactions to the theater's interior when it first opened, on stage it was a mixed bag. Original productions seemed to have fared well at the Marquis, notably Thoroughly Modern Millie, The Drowsy Chaperone, and On Your Feet. Musical revivals also found a home at the theater, including Peter Pan, Annie Get Your Gun, Evita, and Follies. And amid all of those, a few notorious flops: Shogun the musical, Nick and Nora, The Goodbye Girl, The Cape Man, Crybaby, and Wonderland. A mixed bag indeed. Most theaters, Broadway and beyond, are equipped with a fire curtain that, in the event of a fire, drops down from the fly space above the stage and acts as a barrier to prevent the spread of fire from the stage to the audience. Since the Marquis Theatre was part of a non-traditional hotel design, the original builders opted for a deluge curtain instead. As the name implies, a deluge curtain is a large pipe that hangs above the stage, and in the event of a fire, 200,000 gallons of water are released in a curtain-like cascade from above. On the afternoon after the first preview performance of Evita, a maintenance worker in the hotel was doing some electrical work near the theater. Somehow, his repairs triggered the deluge system, and producer Hal Luftig watched as water rained down from the ceiling in droves onto his multi-million-dollar set. The floor of his set was raked, so as the water hit the deck of the stage, it flooded to the orchestra pit. After the crew spent 2 days sopping up the water with vacuums and towels, the production went on as planned, with audiences none the wiser. And what happened to the deluge curtain, you ask? Well, it's refilled and back in use today. Hello! Happy Saturday noon on Broadway. Can you believe that it is week 40 that I have been with you for 40 Saturdays in a row? Longer than some relationships in my life. So here we are. Welcome to Saturday Noon on Broadway as part of our Virtual Broadway Tour Series. Every week we're coming to you live with someone who's worked at the theater we're featuring that week. And this week we are joined by what I think she's basically Miss Marquis Theatre because she's done so many things in this one building. Mara Davi from the Drowsy Chaperone, White Christmas, and this little show that I feel like you've heard of called Smash, all at the Marquis. For those that aren't familiar with me or Broadway Up Close, my name is Tim Dolan. I'm an actor and the owner of Broadway Up Close in New York City. For the last 11 years, we've hit the sidewalks of Times Square telling you all the secrets, history, fun facts, ghost stories, all the things you didn't know that you really want to know about our 41 Broadway theaters. We have 5 exterior tours that take you theater by theater and tell you all of our secrets. And we have one interior tour inside Broadway's oldest theater, the Hudson, which we opened in October of 2019. The theater itself opened 118 years ago. So lots of history, lots of great stories. All of our tours that are exterior are currently available, socially distanced and masked. The only one that isn't offered, of course, is our Hudson Theater because it's inside. And I feel like you've heard that Broadway's closed. So that's not a thing right now. For all information on all of our tours and everything, head to www.broadwayupclose.com. In addition to all of the other theatrical insanity that I've orchestrated in my life, I open a gift shop in the middle of Times Square with our big 6-foot-tall Broadway sign, 150 marquee light bulbs spelling our favorite word, which is Broadway. Duh. That'll all open. We're hoping it'll open this summer, maybe June is what we're thinking. So more details on that as that all becomes available. I have to tell you, I never envisioned a world of New York City without Broadway. I didn't think the shutdown in my mind, I thought initially it would just be a couple weeks. That turned into a couple months. Those couple months turned into now officially a year. So here we are a year later, all these weeks later. It's insane and it's crazy. And I can't believe that this is our lives. And so I thought to connect with you, we'll do it virtually. So virtual tours that we've done, as well as our virtual series. So 41 theaters, 41 weeks, starting with the oldest and moving forward chronologically, which brings us to week 40, one of our quote unquote newest theaters, the Marquis. I hope you've enjoyed our stories this week about floods and flops and all of the things. How's today going to work? For today's series, we'll learn all about Mara's theatrical journey, her time working on the Drowsy Chaperone, White Christmas, and Smash, all at the Marquis. If you have any questions for her or me along the way, drop it in the comments. And if you're joining us live, which welcome, hello, comment now in the comments and let me know where you're watching from so we can see where our stories are going today. Are you ready? Are you excited? I am. I think it's going to be fun. Join me, without further ado, join me in welcoming Broadway's Mara Davi.
Hey, everyone.
Hello. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. I'm so happy to be here. Hi, Squigs.
Squigs here. Oh, guys, celebrities. Celebrities.
Oh my gosh. Celebrities. And so cool to see people from all over the country. This is really a happy way to spend a Saturday.
I love that. Thank you for spending your Saturday with us. Let's jump right in. For those who aren't lucky enough to know everything about you in your life, will you tell us all the things like Mara Davi pre-New York City? So where you grew up, if you went to school, when you first got exposed to theater, when that turned into like, maybe I'll do this for a living, and then you're setting down your suitcases in New York City, the mini bio version of you pre that moment.
NYC. that
$3.
So Great. So I grew up in Colorado, outside of Denver, and then I moved to Sacramento, California for high school. I started doing community theater and like semi-professional theater, just, you know, in the suburbs of Denver and then around the Sacramento area, all growing up. My first show was a church show when I was 8. That was the first time I was like, ooh, I like telling stories. Before I'd been in dance class since I was 3, because that's what a mom does with a little girl to expend energy, like just put her in dance class. So I'd always been dancing and always sung, between singing with my mom at church and then just singing every Disney song ever, because
that's what you do.
It was really great to be a child of the late 80s, early 90s. You know, it was just like
every movie ever coming out.
Yeah, just like I was 5 when The Little Mermaid came out. So that was my vocal training, was just singing alongside Jodie Benson.
Were there siblings? Is it just you?
I'm the oldest, and oldest of 4. So 2 girls after me, and then the youngest is a boy.
Wow.
And the next sister down, she and I did everything together, like every show together, every dance class together. And then the younger 2 kind of went the other direction and did taekwondo and drumming and visual art and video games. So we're kind of like split.
The balance of it all. And what's the difference in age between you and your sister?
Melody, the next one down, we're 2.5 years apart.
Okay.
So it was great. Like in The Sound of Music, we were able to like, you know, be the Stone Steps going down.
Sure. And when you're in high school, so if you're a senior, she's in school with you. So you're always in the same building, which is nice.
Yeah, totally. It was great. We did so much together and so many artistic things together. In fact, skipping ahead a little bit. So I went to school at Cal State Fullerton for 2 years for musical theater in Southern California. It was awesome to have in-state tuition and just take a step away from home without moving all the way to New York. But I left school after my sophomore year because I booked Peggy Sawyer in the non-union tour of 42nd Street. So that got me out of school and on the road. It was an incredible experience. You know, taught me so much, was just like a great, I mean, I know like it was controversial doing a non-equity tour, but it was one of the best things that could ever happen to me in my life.
And is that, so this non-ec tour is, when is this? Do you remember what year?
Yes, this is 2004. We started in Japan, and then we made our way across the country, which is awesome. It's where I met our mutual friend, Chris Rogers. He played in our band for the whole tour.
Wow. And so the audition for this, you're in school, is Cal State Fullerton. Are they one of these schools that's like, don't audition? And you're like, sure. No, I definitely want to audition. Sure. And then, great. And you go to this one audition and they're like, you should be in this, but you should be Peggy Sawyer. And you're like, all right.
Well, and I was kind of like, I should be in this and I should be Peggy Sawyer.
Oh, great. Okay, good.
Because I was young and, you know, had more confidence than I think I lost confidence as I realized how big the talent pool was. But it's really nice to be young and naive and just think like, this is my role. And it really is like the role I had been training for since the beginning. Like I knew all of the original choreography already. I just always wanted to be in this show. So when I auditioned specifically for Peggy. I was gunning for it. I auditioned in Los Angeles, which was awesome because there were so like the pool of people auditioning for musicals there is much smaller than New York. So it was an easy breezy process. And then they flew me to New York for the final audition. They were also shooting a documentary because it was going to Japan, and they had this like whole Japanese making of documentary that they were doing. So I was 19 years old in New York auditioning for the first time, cameras everywhere, shooting this thing. It was a really, really cool experience.
And this is Randy Skinner is involved. It's the Revival production, but of course the non-union, but us probably same associate, same everything.
Well, it's his. So what happened was Mark Bramble, the director and creator, his assistant basically left the directors union to direct the show. Okay. And then one of Randy's dear friends who was not in the choreographers union, choreographed the show. Right. And Randy would just like come in to visit on a lunch break in an unofficial capacity, but you know, like
sure,
give some friendly words of advice. So it was that was the first time I met Randy, and he and I have had a very long relationship at this point. Oh my gosh. Well, I just did the math in my head, but I'm not going to say the math out loud.
Yeah, it's been a minute, we'll say. And did you feel in this unofficial capacity? I'm always interested in. I don't know you well enough to know if it's like a muse situation, but it feels like he being Randy Skinner has a couple people in his life that when he does big projects that you are top of mind. So this first moment you meet him where he's just popping in on lunch breaks, where is the first moment that you feel like you really kind of cement this relationship where he's going to use you in lots of things?
Well, I certainly didn't feel that on 42nd Street. Like, you know, there was a dream, a hope that we'd work together in the future. But it's less of a muse thing and more like Randy is a teacher. He went to college to be an educator and just so happens to be a Broadway director, choreographer as well. Sure. But for anyone who's ever taken one of his dance classes, and he teaches in New York all the time, like he is there to nurture and develop raw talent. He's not looking for a finished product. So I definitely felt that in our early relationship, that he was just available and supportive to help me grow. You know, it wasn't like you have to be perfect now or you're not going to work with me. It was just, he seeks people with like kind of with that clean and bright essence of the 1930s, 40s performer. Yeah. Like he sees people that have that spirit and then he just nurtures that and develops that.
And do you feel like, because so many of the shows, it feels like you do have such a specific style, whether it is this old school style or it's, Drowsy Chaperone making fun of that old school style or poking fun at it. Do you feel that style, what to me I think of as the Randy Skinner style with the arms and the way you carry yourself, do you think that's something that can be taught, or do you think that's you, Mara Davi, even in that first audition, already have that and then he finesses that and fits you into the world of that?
I think it's both.
Okay.
I've said, like my body doesn't do hip hop, so I do think that there
not an option for you.
Like I could be trained to like fake it, but it's never going to come out of my spirit that way, right? So I do think that we are naturally inclined to certain styles, and I was all I did was watch Gene Kelly, Sid Charisse, Fred and Ginger, like that was my obsession as a child. So I was like definitely primed and ready.
Yeah.
Like my spirit was and is Randy's style. I always tell him when I do a show with him, it feels like coming home. Like that's my neutral, that's my home base. Everything else, all of the other exciting things I've gotten to do outside of that world have been like gross and have stretched me. But coming back to that 1920s through 40s world is home base for me.
That's pretty incredible. And what does it feel like? So you think your whole life up to 18, 19, 20 years old, when you go into this audition for 42nd Street, you want to do this. This is what you want to be. You are Peggy Sawyer. And then they say, yes, be Peggy Sawyer. I'm always interested of the meeting of the moments of, I think I can. And then the world saying, yeah, we'll give you money to do that. You're right. What is that moment of validation? Is this the first moment of like, I think I could, this is going to go well, I think?
Yeah, like I said, it kind of has gone like backwards for me. So yeah, that first time I was like, great, this is amazing. This is the start of something. Like, I think I didn't realize the reality of how challenging things are. So it was like, yes, I knew I was supposed to play this role. I auditioned for this role. I got this role, Broadway's next. Like here we go. Nonstop. And truth be told, I had an amazingly fortunate beginning to my career where I went right from 42nd Street to the ensemble of White Christmas, where I got my equity card and I worked with Randy and I understudied to play Judy Haynes, the lead. So like that was a step. And right after White Christmas, I auditioned for Maggie in a chorus line and got the revival. So truth be told, I did go right from tour to Broadway and right from there to Drowsy Chaperone. So I had a very fortunate, like blissful beginning where it was like, yes, it's just going to go up and up and up. And then there was a kind of wall after that where I realized, oh, I need to get back into class. I need to expand beyond this home base of my natural abilities. So it's kind of funny. Like when 42nd Street happened, I was like, yes, perfect. This feels like the stars aligning and everything is right. When Chorus Line happened, it was different. Like I'd always wanted to play Maggie. I knew that was the role for me. But when I got cast in it, it was suddenly like, oh, I have to do this.
You're like doing this. Yeah.
So it was kind of the opposite feeling. Imposter syndrome. That's what it comes down to.
And I think the best people, it never goes away. I think whether you're building a business or you're on stage or whatever it is, you achieve any level of success, there's always the moment, and it never goes away. It's how you channel it. And I think the people that are really successful are able to feel it underneath, but use it in some way that is, that aids their success in the long run. Okay, so let's talk about a chorus line since we jumped. Okay, so you don't have, what's your thoroughly modern Millie moment of New York City? You go to Japan, you go on tour. The first moment you're in New York City, living in New York City, is White Christmas Ensemble?
Yes, so like we rehearsed 42nd Street in New York for 3 weeks. So I had like a sublet moment there. We rehearsed White Christmas in New York City for 3 weeks. So I had a sublet moment there. And then I was sleeping on someone's couch, just visiting temporarily when I booked a chorus line. So
me too. I'm always doing things like that. It's so funny how it all works out.
I was like sleeping on like 3 different couches. So like I was just like on a different couch for like all 3 different chorus line auditions I had in a very tight period of time.
And in the audition process, because it was so documented, did you feel like that montage in every little step where it's all the girls choking on that last note of ballet, and then it comes out like a nightingale and you're like, booked it. Hi guys. Is that what it felt like in the audition, or? Yeah, right. It's like you sang the note right. Here's your contract is probably not how it went.
No, not at all. A few things. I will say they were having trouble finding Maggie. So they'd been auditioning for like 9 months by the time I came in to audition. Okay. So I was very fortunate. Like my first audition was a week before the final audition. There were people that had auditioned like the past July, the past April, in those lines of like hundreds of people that then had to wait until January for the final callback. But my first audition was only with like 40 girls to be BB or Maggie a week before the final callback. So fortunately, I didn't know just how many people were auditioning for this role. That being said, like singing Maggie, I have many challenges within my instrument, but that is like the one thing that my instrument was built to do. And because of that, I assume everyone else can do the same thing. So I absolutely did not feel like, oh my gosh, I went in and nailed this. This is difficult for others. I just assumed, yay, I sang the note, and so did all.
Right. We all did.
40 of these women, and they're amazing. And I left that singing call that you see in the documentary. I left the room after that, and I felt great because I sang the note. And Megan Larsh, the casting director with Jay Binder Casting, she came out and she was like, listen, they really like you, but you have to turn sharper and leap higher by the time you get to your callback next week. And I was like, wow.
Okay.
Well, I don't think I can dance better in a week. I don't think I can do it. So this is it. So my agent was like, listen, there's a few people that are also called back for this that are really good dancers. One of them can coach you on it. And the person I ended up connecting with was Tice Diorio. So So I paid Tice. I rented a room at Ripley Greer. I paid Tice, and he coached me. He was like, listen, you're going to leap higher if you're in your ballet shoes. Put your ballet shoes on. And he helped me spot to get my turn sharper. And so he did. He helped me eke through in that dance audition enough to get the role. So it was not easy breezy.
Sure.
But it was still, pretty, it felt like a Cinderella moment nonetheless.
I'm sure. And then this revival, because there felt like there was so much attention paid to it because it's the first revival and it's the documentary and the process of it all. So what does it feel like? I mean, I still get chills just thinking that first moment where 5 in the middle of the audition where he starts yelling and then the horns come in and you all crush it. So what is that? The first time you do that at the Schoenfeld, what's that moment like?
Oh my gosh.
You remember it. How could you forget? I don't know.
Well, I wasn't expecting it because we had what they used to call it a gypsy run, which we don't call a gypsy run anymore.
Right.
But we had the
final dress.
Our final dress, yeah. And it was a packed final dress with like Bernadette Peters and Joel Grey, like at the final dress, which thank God I did not know, before.
You're like, hey, Bernadette, great.
Again,
nice.
like being young and just moved to the city, there was a lot that I was blissfully unaware of, thank God, because it kept my nerves a little more in check. But when we turned around on that first 5, 6, 7, 8, like the overwhelming cheer, the overwhelming welcome from the friends of the Broadway community that were like so excited for this, that invited dress was just an unforgettable moment. And it felt so good to be embraced. It launched us off on the right foot.
Incredible. And so then what's that moment when you hit this big note and it feels like, I don't know, that one note to me feels representative of the entire show, of this girl just like killing it and then dancing, and it's so good. Do you have, it's in your wheelhouse, so that note every night is like, it just comes out and it's there? Or is it like, oh no, here it comes, I hope this goes well?
Not for that note. No,
Okay.
There were other parts, especially when I was 22, my voice wasn't fully developed and I didn't have a mix. So it was actually like,
all or nothing.
The lighter stuff. So like I could belt the note, but then doing the hey, like that, that was hard. And especially after belting that high note. So I definitely went through periods of like that note barely coming out, and I'd be more nervous for that. Wow. I was never nervous for that high note.
Crazy.
I was just lucky. Like that's just how my voice was built at that. It's harder now. I can still do it, but it takes like 2 weeks of vocal swing.
Right. Actually, actual warm-ups. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Old age. It's a really great thing for,
I'm okay with it because of the trade-off of like what has developed, but yeah.
Yeah. Crazy. So then you go from this, and then right after chorus line is
Drowsy.
First time at the Marquis, right?
Yeah. Let's get to the Marquis.
Yes, let's do it. Okay, so Drowsy. So what is this to replace, of all people, Sutton Foster? And you just, I don't know, this feels like you're taking over the world at this point. What does it feel like for you to actually have lived it from the inside?
Oh, it was so intimidating.
Yeah.
It was so intimidating. I also because I couldn't leave a chorus line when Sutton needed to leave. So Janine LaManna came in for 3 months.
Okay.
And like, inside I was like, I felt so much better knowing that she had been the immediate replacement.
Sure.
Like she was more mature than I, and like would know how to handle it better, because I was incredibly intimidated stepping into the shoes of someone who was my absolute idol.
Yeah.
And it was intimidating the whole time, that knowledge, but it was one of those roles again where I just felt like I understood it. It was in my wheelhouse. It was my style. I had auditioned for Drowsy Chaperone right after 42nd Street. So like before it went to the Amundsen,
Yeah.
I got this random call one day. I couldn't understand it. I was like, does anyone know what Kelsey casting is? And someone was like, you mean Bernie Telsey? And I was like, I don't know. I have no idea. But they're good at like, they're good at finding people, you know, finding unknowns out there. And so they somehow had heard about me while I was doing 42nd Street. And they're like, we've got this new musical. Will you come audition for it?
Wow.
So and we were on tour in New Jersey at New Jersey PAC. So I was able to take the train in and audition for the team, not having any idea what I was doing, but feeling great about the material. And then like 2 days later, they announced that Sutton was doing it. And I was like, well, of course.
Yes.
I'm 21 years old and have never done anything. And she's my idol. That's fabulous.
Yeah.
So then a year and a half later, Drowsy's on Broadway. We're on Broadway with a chorus line. And I got a call saying they remember you from this audition. Like this audition where I was still non-union. I couldn't believe it. And they were like, Casey Nicolau wants to have a private audition with you to replace Sutton, which was just like,
yes,
it was so magical. And so I got to go and have this private audition. Like this was a magic moment that literally hasn't happened since, where I like did this audition and then got called 2 days later saying, you know, the part is yours. And it's just like, who would have thunk it?
Incredible.
The preparation was super fun. Like I was rehearsing while I was in a chorus line. My final week of a chorus line, I was also rehearsing Drowsy. I had a total of 12 days of rehearsal. But they also paid for me to have some gymnastics lessons at Chelsea Piers, which was super fun. So we could develop my own
do all of that.
Special things. What?
Did you have to do cartwheels and all of that?
Yeah. So I added like my version of, I was trying to nail a front walkover and it didn't quite work. So I did like a handstand into a back bend. And then I like slowly scooched myself together so that I could slowly climb back. It was like a very slow walkover that we added. And I also learned how to like turn a lasso and jump in the lasso and pull it up over my head. And like 6 out of 8 shows, I nailed it. And then 2 shows every week for the whole run, I hog-tied my legs together. But at least it was real. It was not a fake like rope that was like, I literally did it. It was just, I only had like 12 counts to do the whole thing. So it was,
and in those moments, as you're like, I don't want to show off and you're tangled, what does one do when you're trying to show off, but it's not going well?
Yeah, fortunately she's the oops girl. So I would just go, oops, keep going.
I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed with everything about this. Sure. Yeah, in my mind, when you're doing the song Show Up, it would always go well. In my mind, how could it not go well? But this is incredible.
I mean, the cool thing, maybe for someone so much more fabulous than I, it would go well. But like, I loved that about it, that like the things we were doing were real and were difficult.
Yeah.
So they could go wrong, you know, like if it was so easy that everything went perfectly, it wouldn't be exciting.
Wow. And this is, I think that was when Sutton Foster did her cartwheel out of town and broke her arm, I think, right? Something she did, one-handed cartwheel or something and broke her arm in rehearsals. So it,
I forgot about that.
Elements of danger that I guess are inherent.
Exactly.
Send me a picture, which I want to show because it's so good. I love a good coming up through the floor moment. So you're coming up through the floor. This is you coming up through the floor on this chair, right?
Yes, right before show off. So that's getting ready on the lift to come up from below the stage.
And what is it like at the Marriott Marquis, which to me feels like a 1986 cruise ship? What is it like to like come up through the floor on Broadway and feel very fancy?
Oh, it's awesome. I mean, there's some, you know, it's very exciting and a little scary, especially like that first week, right? Where you're just like, you're down in your like quiet, cozy little den. And then all of a sudden the gates open and then you're like lifted into a full house. And like just all of the show energy all of a sudden, you know, and you know that you're launching into your big number.
Yeah.
But it's exhilarating. It's probably even better to come down at the end of a number, because I got to do that at the end of Show Off, and then again at the end of The Bride's Lament. And that's great, because like you've sung your high note, you did the thing, and then you just get to
build it. Yeah.
slowly descend. But it's nice. The Marquis feels so intimate, right? Like, I love your description of like 1980s cruise ship, like how it might seat 1,500.
Yeah, I think it's 14, 15. Yeah, something right there.
Yeah, but it feels cozy, which is divine. And then backstage, like to get to the basement, you have to go down a spiral staircase, which is like, I love a spiral staircase. It's just one of my favorite architectural elements. But it's also like insane, because you're doing this in like a thick red robe, and then, or like that picture you just showed, that was, you know, I had like 4 different costumes underneath.
That's right.
And Show Off, you're just stripping layers through the whole thing. So like that's a ton of stuff that you're traveling down that spiral staircase. But
incredible. So then you end up back. The next show you do at the Marquis is White Christmas. That's the next time you end up back there.
Yeah.
But this time you're playing Judy, no longer in the ensemble, right?
Correct. Yes.
What is that? Does it have a Peggy Sawyer feeling to you of I was in the ensemble and now I'm crushing it?
It was awesome. That one was like it was a nice slow development. Like I said, Randy's great at developing artists. So I had done the ensemble, and then I did Chorus Line, and I did Drowsy, and, you know, started doing a bunch of other shows and just working professionally. Yeah. And so then the next time I was available, they called me to come back as Judy, but it was out of town. So the first year that it was on Broadway, Meredith Patterson, who originated the role, she did it on Broadway, and they had me do Judy in St. Paul. So again, it was like, yay, like a step up. Now, you know, I've been principal roles on Broadway, and now I get to be Judy. I've graduated, and then that was like the trial run of me as Judy. And so then the next year I got to do the role.
Incredible.
In New York, which was awesome. Yeah.
That I Love a Piano. I did the show in a small regional production years ago as Phil, so I feel your pain of doing the 7-minute tap number, and then there's a whole scene after. They're like, now talk, and you're like, I can't breathe.
Yeah, and the girl has to do a quick change too.
Oh yeah, that's right. You go right into that next thing, and you're like, this is great. She's gonna go change. I'm gonna try to talk through this. Great. Describe that feeling to me of starting a number where it's just you and a dude center stage, and then it turns into this whole thing, and then 7 minutes later you've taken over the world. That's where you thrive? Is that?
I mean, you just described it. I Love a Piano is one of my favorite dance numbers I've ever done. I think Randy has just like sculpted and structured the most perfect tap number with the most perfect build. It starts with the two of you, and then it's the two of you and a little tiny piano, and then the female ensemble comes out on little piano stools, and then the male ensemble in the Broadway production like rose on an elevated lift like 12 feet above everyone else in tap dance.
Right.
And then everyone's together, and then the tempo changes, and you know there's a stop time section, and then there's the double time section, and then suddenly everyone is the white and black piano keys right down the row doing this.
It's genius.
Fast shuffle step. It's exhilarating. It's fun to do. It's exhausting, but I do think well structured for stamina. You know, once you get into it, like Randy has always said like he won't choreograph something that he can't do himself.
I love that.
Which is really nice.
Rare.
Yeah. And it makes like
do these, and you're like, well, you don't have to do this 8 times a week. What do you mean do these? I'm not doing these.
And I think it makes the dance possible.
Yeah.
He choreographs things that move across a lot of distance, which is exhausting, but is exciting to watch. Like he chooses to do less intricate tap steps sometimes, because even though they are so hard, they're not always impressive. Like the audience doesn't necessarily understand all the time the difficulty of that, but sweeping motions across the stage can be exhilarating and impressive.
And exhausting, as you say.
Very
Very exhausting. So then you, in looking at your career, it seems that you've kind of had this nice kind of back and forth between starting to do film and TV and then Broadway and regional, and you kind of have run the gamut of and the Play That Goes Wrong, where you're doing comedic stuff. I mean, you're doing everything. Did you always, when you were growing up, of course, it sounds like dance was very prevalent to get all your energy out 1, 2, 2 at a time. But do you feel like singing was always a part of it? That was a natural gift. Comedy was always there. Like, where did this all come in your life? Was it you're just that good that you're like, I don't know, it's just I'm just good and I just show up and I do it, or what?
No. I mean, the singing was always there. The tapping was always there. Other dancing is something I have to work on. You know, like I can dance, but it takes more class to be a good dancer.
Yeah.
And then the acting is something that I've really worked on. Like I've, you know, taken a bunch of class. When I first came to New York, like I said, I thought I had everything I needed and I had this like really great beginning. And then there was a lull and I realized I don't have all the skills I need. So I like jumped back into class. And I also like, I would never really thought I was going to do on camera work. I was like, well, you know, if someone comes up to me and they're like, hey, do this, I'll do it. But I have a really great team. My manager has been incredible and, you know, seen things in me that I didn't even see. So she really pushed for television in the beginning and I was uncomfortable with it. But over the years, it's like, now that's, you know, I just want more and more. I describe it as like doing yoga and kickboxing or something. Like I like being able to use all those muscles. So it feels, when I'm doing film, I miss the theater. When I'm doing theater, I miss on camera. Like it feels good. It's such a blessing to have an opportunity to do it all.
Yeah.
The comedy.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's such to me, comedy is, you can't teach it. You're funny or you're not funny. And especially the Play That Goes Wrong type of funny to me is we can finesse this, but there has to be a funny bone in your body or it's not going to go well.
Absolutely. Well, I think people are prone to different kinds of comedy and there's certain comedy that I'm terrible at. But again, I feel like that kind of like pratfall, farcical comedy kind of lives in that same world that I grew up with all of the like old black and white movies that I watched and watching, you know, the Marx Brothers and things like that. Like that was my upbringing. So that stuff makes sense to me. And I do think that with the movement background, I enjoy physical comedy so much. Like I'm much better at doing pratfalls than I am at telling a joke.
Sure. You know? Yeah, the physical element is you know, half the time that's how you land the joke. So it's such a huge part of it that I think is I think you're either good at it or not, and then you can finesse from there. Do you say this team with this manager or these people that are in your corner and are navigating the insanity of this career with you? Because you do so many different things, do you have intentions of this is what I want to do next? Or is it just kind of what you're brought in for? Is there thought and intention to the arc of a career that you're building?
There is. Between my agents and my manager, I would say like they are more focused than I am. I would say that, you know, I just want to work. And if someone wants to hire me, then I'm like, yes, yes, yes. And so they're there to kind of help me make choices. And the priorities are different at any stage, you know, it's like they'll help guide. They'll ask the questions like, you know, do you need this job for the money? This job, like, you know, this job might be more artistically fulfilling, but this job is with this creative team that could open the door this way. So they're there to just, guide and point out the pros and cons of different things, but they do at the end of the day listen to what I want. And I've definitely made a lot of choices just based on the fact that as an artist, I want to do something, you know, where they're like, we really don't want you to go out of town right now, but I'm like, this role is going to make me really happy. So I'm going to do it. And of course, now we've got, I've got my husband and we have a son, and like, so those things, that's oh my God, into the decision making and really change when we can travel, how far we can travel, those kinds of things. So yeah.
How old is your son?
He's 3.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so, okay. So then I have 2 questions. What is it like to be a working mom in our insane industry? And so pre-pandemic have had a child who is 1 and 2 years old. And then what's it like to be in a global shutdown where your entire industry is shut down, and to be a mom? What is that like?
Well, different for everyone. Obviously, my personal experience, I'm so fortunate to have the tribes that I have. When we live just north of New York City in the Hudson Valley. And when we moved to this property, it's a 2-home property, and we moved here with my parents. Wow. So we've got grandma and grandpa close by. And then my husband's mom is retired. So wow. When I have had long contracts, like when I did the play that goes wrong, she would actually come out here for anywhere from 1 to 3 months to be extra childcare, because my husband's also an actor and teaches acting and things like that. So like Squigs is talking about great memories of the whole family on stage at the Lex. Arthur was 3 months old when we had our first theatrical experience in Kentucky. Wow. And so Squigs got to meet my mother-in-law because she flew to Kentucky with us and watched Arthur, because my husband and I both got to be in the show together with Squigs, who was amazing. Wow. So thank God for our tribe, because
you need them. The schedule is crazy. The contract, not knowing how, there's just so many unknowns that, and so many things that change on a whim and go so quickly, and your life changes. So, the circumstances of going and leaving and uprooting a life to do a show for 2 months and then to come back, that volatility is what makes it crazy. And so I'm anyone who can navigate it. I have a French bulldog, and that's hard enough. And so I can't imagine what it's like to have something that isn't covered in fur, and you can't just leave at home with a dog walker. Anyone who can do that and navigate it and have a career, it's unbelievable. It's really
the logistics are crazy, and every situation, every time is a different negotiation, and it depends on if my husband and I are both working or not, what we're able to do. And when Arthur enters kindergarten, that's going to change everything again. These early years have been great because we can just like take them along for the ride. And then as far as the pandemic goes, we've been blessed with enough pivot work to, keep us afloat. We, speaking of the Lex, where we did the show with Squigs in Kentucky, they went all online with an educational component, and they hired my husband and I on as acting teachers for high school and college students. So that, and professionals too, like we do private coachings for everyone through the Lex. So that has been really, really beneficial to be able to teach in this time where we really haven't been able to pay. We haven't gotten paid to perform for most of the pandemic, right? We've definitely done all of the benefit videos and YouTube things and all of that. It's been awesome to have tons of time to watch our son grow and be here with him all the time. We've just gone through the same things as everyone else when it comes to being a parent in the pandemic, but maybe we were a little, I guess we were more used to this lifestyle because our life is so sporadic and all over the place. Like we we didn't have 9-to-5 jobs that we had to figure out how to do from home and take care of the kids and everything. Like, we're used to just kind of going away for 4 hours to do an audition and then coming home, and like, we're used to being here and being in each other's space most of the time anyway. So I think we were much better off than some. We feel fortunate about that.
Yeah, that's incredible. Chris Rogers, our mutual friend, he mentioned briefly something which I like because it's my company's colors. He mentioned something about the Broadway Green Alliance or conservation, or this is a thing you're big about. Tell me about all of this.
Okay, let's see how quickly I can do it. Yes, I'm very passionate about our planet. I'm sure a lot of you out there are as well. So we've been aiming for zero waste in our household for about 5 years. So we, have done a lot of research on that, and I like talking to people, kind of coaching people through how to reduce consumption in their lives and the benefits of that. I've done, multiple social media campaigns about it. # small green steps, # 30 days of green, # vintage green, all like lots of different series, just trying to educate and encourage green behavior. Yeah. And as part of that, I am part of the steering committee for the Broadway Green Alliance, which you are all welcome to be members of. The Broadway Green Alliance has a bunch of tools to green theaters all across the country. And during the pandemic, we've taken this time to create a reopening toolkit so that as theaters are reopening, they can use it as an opportunity to green their practices at the same time. It's especially challenging because we think, because of COVID, like, everything needs to be plastic, everything needs to be single use. So the Broadway Green Alliance has done a really great job of going to the science and vetting the products to advise people on what reusables you can use safely, and also like what cleaning products are CDC approved, but also the least toxic for our environment. So they're a great resource if you're involved in any theater company, from community to regional, touring, off-Broadway, Broadway. They've got awesome resources for how to green the theater. And one of my pivots in this pandemic has been going back to school. Since I left my sophomore year,
That's right.
I was studying musical theater at that time, but I started attending SUNY Empire State, which is an online college here in New York. And I was able to use those theater credits and design an environmental studies degree. So I am now on track to get my BS in environmental studies, which I'm really excited about.
Come on, as if you weren't smart enough already. Now you're smarter than all of us officially.
No, I'm just working toward it, but right now I'm
sure. Okay, well, soon enough you'll be smarter than all of us. That's incredible. Congratulations. You're really I always love meeting the human behind the face of 8 times a week. And there's a lot, you have a lot set in motion. It's really between a mom, between conservationist, everything. You're pretty incredible. One question for the future, and then we'll wrap up and talk about your social media and do all of that fun stuff. Tom says, hi, Mara. We love Tom. He says, you were amazing in the Chorus Line Revival, my fave show. Since you have experience replacing Sutton Foster, any plans to take over for her in Music Man? Because I'm willing to wait.
That is very sweet. No, it hasn't even crossed my mind. I really appreciate that. But I'm just excited to see Sutton do it, like, let's just get back out there and see Sutton and Hugh on stage. And, if it's still running and she's ready to move on, then, maybe I'll see if I can.
We'll cross our fingers. We'll see if we can get you an audition. We'll see if we can pull some strings. Caitlin says, this was my favorite S.N.O.B story so far. Thank you for sharing this from a performance perspective. What a journey living the dream.
Thanks, Caitlin.
You're awesome. You're incredible. How should we, if we want to know more about you as a human, is Instagram the best way that we should do that?
Yeah. I think Instagram, just at Mara Davi, is super simple. Yep. Right. And on my Instagram, I do share my email addresses. I have a coaching email address for acting, and then also an email address for anything green related. If you just want to have a conversation about anything sustainability related, you can find that email address on my Insta. And I did want to just say, going back to like, you know, juggling all of these different balls, I think it's just so important as performers to have balance for our mental health, right? To not put all of our eggs in the basket of like, what is my next show going to be? Especially during this time when our performance opportunities are so limited. Like, I'm so thankful to have other passions and interests, and to still feel full and content, and zigzag between it all.
Yeah, it's so much of our career as performers and theater people, it feels like you have to put blinders on to everything else and focus on this one thing. And I often think, no, there's so many, my parents call it unstable. And I say, no, you just mean flexible. It allows us to do a million different things. I had a question that I missed. He says, Miss Davi, were you in Elf the musical on the national tour?
I wasn't, but that would be fun.
A lookalike. Yeah, maybe. We'll have to
Doppelganger. Yeah, find out who that is.
You're incredible. Thank you so much. Continue thriving. Good luck with the rest of your bachelor's and all of that, and studies. And we can't wait to see you in The Music Man when you replace Sutton Foster. You're going to be so great at that. And we'll keep an eye out for you and your husband on the other side of this and all the things that you are getting yourself up to. So thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks, you guys.
Bye. Just a smart human. I think you realize, again, now that we're 40 weeks into this and we've talked to 41 different people, because the 1 week we had Teresa and Carrie, there's so much more than just the 8 times a week. And of course there's so much that goes into it because you train for this. And that is the goal, right? Is the 8 times a week, and to do this and to make a career and to make money and to be able to afford a family and life and all of that. But there's so much more that goes in, and there's so much more in life that you can focus on with our insane schedules. And it's so nice to see. I like how she said, we're kind of conditioned as performers for a global pandemic, which I don't know how one could be, but there is an element of our lives that are so crazy that it does, in a way, it's just, we'll just roll with this like we always do. And I think as we wrap up next week, I'm starting to get the sense of like, oh, it's done. It was so much work, but it's almost done. But it has been crazy and wonderful to connect with so many people in a time where I don't get to connect with so many people because we don't get to see anyone. But to see what everyone is up to and how they're surviving and how they're getting through and where their passions lie and where they change and how they're using this moment as self-reflection or just a chance for us to look back at their successes that they've had, and then we'll go forward. So I hope you enjoy any and all of that as much as I do. You guys are awesome. Thanks for joining as always. Quick shout outs about our social media, of course, at Broadway Up Close on Instagram. Go give us a like there if you don't already. Merchandise, we have some new stuff that I'm working on that I'm going into the office right after this to work on new stuff that we're launching in the next couple weeks. BroadwayUpClose.com/souvenirs is your link to that. If you want 10% off, Broadway 10 is your discount code for 10% off. We have 1 week left. Can you believe it? I preload the entire week's episodes every weekend before. And so in my notes for today, it says load all of next week's episodes in one last time. So it feels crazy. But 1 week to go. For those who have been on this journey with me from the beginning, God bless you for still sticking around and being here all these weeks and months later. But with that said, we are officially 1 day closer to Broadway, the end of week 40. I will see you on Monday for our final week. We have something great in store for the final, 2 for the price of 1 for next Saturday. And so I hope we'll see you again next Saturday, and all our videos all week for one final week, 1 day closer to Broadway. I love you all. I'll see you again soon. Have a great weekend and happy Saturday noon on Broadway.